Imagine sitting alone in a quiet room. No messages, no noise, no one calling your name. Just you and the sound of your own breathing. For most people, that silence feels uncomfortable. They reach for a screen, a voice, a distraction. But what if this simple moment, just you and your own presence, was the doorway to the deepest peace you will ever know? Buddhism teaches that true happiness does not begin when you find the right people. It begins when you finally stop running from yourself. Peace blooms the moment you learn to love your own company, because when the world becomes too loud, solitude becomes a sanctuary. When the heart breaks, it is quiet time alone that heals the pieces. And when you stop needing someone else to complete you, you finally discover the powerful truth. You were always complete. Today, we will explore why time alone is not loneliness, but the highest form of self-love. We will unlock 7 powerful lessons that show how being happy alone can transform your life, deepen your spirit, and awaken a calm strength within you. If you are ready to turn solitude into your greatest teacher, then stay with me. Your journey begins right now. 1. Your own presence is enough. Most of us are taught from childhood that happiness is something we receive from the outside world. We are told that friends make life meaningful, that romantic love completes us, and that being surrounded by others is proof that we are valuable. Because of this conditioning, we start believing that our worth is connected to how many people like us, talk to us, or choose to be with us. When we are alone, we feel uncomfortable, as if something is missing. We keep looking outward, hoping someone will come and make us feel whole. But this mindset is what keeps many people unhappy. Learning to enjoy your own company is one of the most powerful inner shifts you can make. When you begin spending time alone, intentionally, not as punishment, but as a gift, you slowly discover a truth that society never taught you. You were never incomplete. You were never lacking. You are not an empty cup waiting for others to fill you. Deep within you already exists everything you need: peace, clarity, creativity, love, and wisdom. Solitude gives you the space to access these parts of yourself. In the beginning, sitting alone may feel strange. The mind might protest because it is used to noise, distraction, and activity. We have been trained to avoid silence because silence forces us to face ourselves. It makes us listen to thoughts and feelings we have ignored for years. But if you stay with yourself gently and patiently, something beautiful begins to happen. The discomfort fades and a quiet sense of peace enters. You realize that being alone is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. It is a sacred moment where you can breathe, reflect, and simply exist without the pressure of performing for others. As you become more comfortable with solitude, you begin to notice small moments of beauty that you never saw before. The sound of your own breath, the way light falls through the window, the softness of your thoughts, the calmness of your inner world. Your presence becomes like sitting beside a calm river. There is no need for constant stimulation, entertainment, or noise. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to pretend. You are simply there, and that is enough. One of the greatest forms of freedom is realizing that you do not need someone else's attention or approval to feel worthy. When you can enjoy your own energy without needing validation, the world loses its power to make you feel lonely. You no longer depend on others to feel important. You stop seeking love as something external and start recognizing love as something that flows from within. This realization transforms loneliness into peaceful aloneness. When you truly embrace your own presence, You carry your home within you. You are no longer searching for someone or something to make you feel complete. You become rooted in yourself. Whether you are surrounded by people or sitting alone in silence, you remain steady. You understand that relationships and companionship are beautiful additions to life, but not requirements for inner peace. You connect with others from a place of fullness rather than need. This is the essence of self-love. Knowing that your existence is enough. You do not need to be more, achieve more, or acquire more to be worthy. You are already whole. Time alone simply gives you the space to remember this truth. The more you sit with yourself, the more you realize that your presence is not a placeholder waiting for someone else to arrive. It is the main event. It is complete. Inside you lives a quiet, gentle power that was always there, just waiting for you to notice. 2. Silence heals more than words ever will. In our modern world, noise has become a constant companion. We wake up to notifications, spend our days surrounded by conversations, and go to sleep with the TV or music playing. Silence feels uncomfortable because it is unfamiliar. We often confuse silence with emptiness, yet silence is the space where true healing begins. Buddhism teaches that silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It is the sacred ground where the mind can finally rest, breathe, and return to its true nature. When you stop filling your mind with constant noise, whether through people, social media, or even your own thoughts, you give your inner world room to settle. Think of a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water stays cloudy. But if you set it down and leave it still, the dirt slowly sinks to the bottom, and the water becomes clear. Silence works the same way. When the mind becomes still, clarity naturally arises. You begin to see things as they truly are, instead of through the fog of stress, fear, and confusion. Many people avoid silence because they are afraid of facing themselves. In silence, everything you've been suppressing, your doubts, regrets, desires, wounds, begins to surface. But this is not a punishment. It is a blessing. These feelings rise because they are ready to be acknowledged and healed. Running away from them only traps you further. Silence teaches you to sit with your inner experience gently, without judgment. It shows you that you are strong enough to face your shadows and compassionate enough to heal them. When you embrace silence, you begin to hear the soft voice of your inner wisdom, a voice often drowned out by the noise of the world. This voice is calm, patient, and deeply truthful. It guides you toward what is right for you, not what others expect. It reminds you of your deepest needs and helps you let go of what is no longer serving you. Silence doesn't give you answers instantly. It creates the space where answers can naturally unfold. You also start to realize how much of your emotional suffering is created not by events themselves, but by your reaction to them. Most of the pain we feel comes from the endless stories we tell ourselves. Worrying about the future, replaying the past, comparing ourselves to others, imagining problems that don't exist. Silence interrupts these mental habits. It allows your mind to stop fighting and simply rest. In this rest, the tension inside you begins to dissolve. One of the most powerful aspects of silence is that it teaches acceptance. When you sit quietly, without trying to change anything, you learn to accept life as it is. You stop forcing outcomes, stop trying to control everything, and start trusting the natural flow of events. You realize that you do not have to chase peace. Peace appears the moment you stop running. This is why meditation is such a central practice in Buddhism, because it trains the mind to return to silence, where healing naturally happens. Silence also helps you reconnect with your senses. You begin to notice the simple beauty around you, the softness of the air, the birds singing in the distance, the subtle rhythm of your breath. These small moments remind you that life is not only found in big achievements or loud excitement. Life is also found in stillness, in the gentle spaces where nothing seems to be happening. In silence, you rediscover wonder. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. Even communication improves when you embrace silence. You begin to listen deeply to others and to yourself. You hear meanings behind words, feel emotions beneath the surface, and understand people more clearly. Silence teaches you to speak thoughtfully, from a place of clarity rather than reaction. Your words become fewer but more powerful. Instead of talking to be heard, you speak to share truth. The more time you spend in silence, the more comfortable you become with yourself. You no longer need to constantly reach outside for distraction or validation. You learn that being alone with your thoughts is not frightening but liberating. Silence becomes a friend, a sanctuary you can return to anytime. Like a temple within your heart, it is always there, waiting to hold you gently. Ultimately, silence is where the mind heals, the heart softens, and the spirit awakens. It gives you space to breathe, to reflect, and to relearn who you are beyond noise, beyond roles, beyond expectations. In silence, you remember your true nature, peaceful, whole, and deeply alive. When you embrace silence, you carry that peace with you into every part of your life. It becomes a source of strength, clarity, and love that no one can take away. 3. Being alone helps you see what truly matters. When we are constantly surrounded by people, responsibilities, and noise, it becomes easy to lose sight of who we truly are. We absorb the energy, beliefs, and expectations of others without even noticing. Little by little, our inner voice becomes quieter while the voices of society grow louder. We start living life based on what others think we should do rather than what our heart deeply desires. Eventually, we forget what matters to us, and life begins to feel heavy and directionless. This is why time alone is so important. It brings you back to yourself. Solitude is like stepping out of a crowded marketplace and entering a quiet forest. In the marketplace, there is excitement, loud music, and many things to look at, but it is also overwhelming. You can easily get distracted and move in directions you never intended. In the quiet forest, however, everything slows down. You can hear your own footsteps, feel your own breath, and notice the gentle presence of nature. You can think clearly. Time alone works the same way. It creates the mental and emotional space needed to understand what is truly meaningful in your life. When you spend time with yourself, without distraction, you begin to separate your true desires from the ones you inherited from others. Many people carry dreams that are not theirs, careers chosen to please parents, lifestyles adopted to fit in, relationships maintained out of fear rather than love. Solitude reveals these borrowed layers. It brings clarity. You begin to see which dreams genuinely belong to you and which were imposed on you by society. This clarity becomes a guiding light that helps you make choices aligned with your authentic self. In stillness, you also begin to notice what drains you. You become aware of habits, relationships, and environments that take more than they give. People sometimes stay in harmful situations simply because they are too busy or too surrounded by noise to notice how unhappy they are. But when life becomes quiet, truth rises to the surface. You start recognizing the difference between what feels peaceful and what feels heavy. You understand that peace is a compass showing you where you belong and what you should release. Time alone also helps you reconnect with your inner values, the principles that define your character. In solitude, you reflect on who you want to be, how you want to treat others, and what kind of life you want to create. These reflections become the foundation of a meaningful life. Without this inner exploration, you may continue drifting, following the path others created for you. Solitude helps you reclaim ownership of your journey. This clarity extends to relationships as well. When you are alone, you become more honest about the people in your life. You begin to notice which relationships support your growth and which hold you back. You understand who loves you for who you are and who only loves you for what you can give. You see friendships that are rooted in sincerity and those based on convenience. This awareness gives you the courage to set boundaries, release damaging connections, and nurture relationships that uplift you. Solitude also helps you recognize the beauty of simple things. When life is filled with constant movement, we miss the quiet treasures around us, the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of breathing freely, the peace of sitting without needing anything. These small moments remind us that meaning does not always come from grand events or accomplishments. Sometimes it comes from learning to appreciate the ordinary. When you step back from the world, your sense of gratitude deepens. You start noticing the richness already present in your life. As clarity grows, your priorities shift. You stop chasing approval and start seeking alignment. You stop trying to be perfect in the eyes of others and start trying to be honest with yourself. You begin to choose experiences not because they impress people, but because they nourish your soul. Life becomes simpler not because there is less in it, but because you no longer feel pulled in 1,000 directions. You focus on what truly matters and let go of what does not. This simplification is not loss, it is freedom. In Buddhism, it is taught that the world outside is a reflection of the world within. When the inner world is chaotic, life feels chaotic. When the inner world is clear, life becomes peaceful. Time alone helps calm the inner landscape. It gives you the opportunity to observe your thoughts, understand your emotions, and see the truth beneath your experiences. With each moment of solitude, you break away from external illusions and move closer to your inner reality. Ultimately, being alone teaches you to live intentionally rather than accidentally. You stop acting on impulse and begin acting from awareness. You make choices based on wisdom rather than fear. You learn to trust your intuition because it is no longer drowned out by the noise of the world. You realize that you are here not to blindly follow a path laid out for you, but to create a life that reflects your true nature. Time alone is not isolation, it is self-discovery. It is the sacred space where you meet yourself without masks or expectations. In that meeting, you uncover what truly matters: your values, your truth, your purpose. And once you know what truly matters, you no longer feel lost. You begin walking through life with clarity, confidence, and deep inner peace. 4. You become your own best friend. Many people go through life desperately seeking companionship because they are uncomfortable with their own thoughts. They fear being alone, not because solitude is painful, but because it forces them to confront the parts of themselves they have ignored. Most of us learn how to be good friends to others, how to listen, how to care, how to support, but very few of us learn how to offer that same love to ourselves. We speak kindly to others, yet criticize ourselves harshly. We comfort others in their pain, yet neglect our own. This imbalance is the root of inner loneliness. The real journey begins when you learn to turn inward and build a relationship with yourself. Spending time alone gives you the opportunity to truly meet yourself. You begin to understand your emotions, your fears, your wants, and your wounds. You learn how to support yourself the same way a loyal friend would. Instead of running from discomfort, you sit with it gently. You stop treating your inner world like an enemy to be conquered and start treating it as a friend in need of compassion. Slowly, the inner resistance softens. You develop patience with your imperfections. You stop expecting yourself to be perfect all the time. You realize that, just like anyone else, you deserve understanding and forgiveness. When you begin this inner friendship, your self-talk changes. You notice how often you've criticized yourself for things you would easily forgive in another. You begin replacing judgment with gentleness. You tell yourself, "It's okay, I am trying, I am learning." This shift is powerful. It is the beginning of true self-love. You stop seeing yourself as someone to escape from and start seeing yourself as someone worth spending time with. A sense of inner safety grows, and you begin to trust yourself on a deeper level. This inner friendship is not built overnight. It is a slow, tender process. It begins with simply being present with yourself, listening to your thoughts, acknowledging your feelings, and giving yourself permission to exist without constantly needing to impress or achieve. In everyday life, we are often judged by others based on our performance, appearance, or accomplishments. But in solitude, none of that matters. You are no longer performing. You are simply being. In this natural state, you learn to accept yourself fully. Being your own best friend also means learning how to comfort yourself during difficult times. When life becomes overwhelming, you turn inward rather than outward. You soothe your fears, speak to yourself with encouragement, and remind yourself that challenges are temporary. You stop relying on others to rescue you emotionally. This doesn't mean you reject support from others. It simply means you no longer depend on it to feel whole. You learn to be there for yourself, even when no one else is. One of the greatest gifts of solitude is discovering what truly brings you joy. When you are always surrounded by others, your preferences get influenced by them. You may do things simply because others enjoy them, but when you're alone, you explore activities that genuinely make your heart feel alive. Reading, painting, walking, cooking, meditating, writing, or simply sitting quietly. You learn to enjoy simple pleasures. You create inner experiences just for yourself. These moments become small treasures that strengthen the bond you have with your own soul. As you continue this journey, you develop a deeper level of trust in yourself. You trust your decisions, your intuition, and your ability to handle life's challenges. You no longer doubt yourself at every step. You begin to see that you can rely on yourself. This inner trust is incredibly liberating. It frees you from the constant need to seek reassurance or approval from others. You begin living according to your inner truth rather than external expectations. Loving yourself also teaches you healthy boundaries. When you value your own well-being, you are less likely to allow others to mistreat you. You stop accommodating people who drain your energy. You recognize your emotional limits and protect them. You say no when needed, without guilt. You stop chasing people who don't appreciate you. When you are your own best friend, you refuse to abandon yourself for the sake of others. You stand by yourself, even when no one else does. This inner friendship allows you to be alone without feeling lonely. Loneliness comes from disconnection, from feeling like you are not understood, loved, or supported. But when you build a strong relationship with yourself, you are always accompanied by someone who understands you deeply. You. That companionship is constant, gentle, and unconditional. It doesn't leave when others do. It doesn't weaken with time. It grows stronger the more attention you give it. Buddhist teachings remind us that true love begins within. Only when you treat yourself with compassion can you truly offer compassion to others. When you are rooted in self-love, relationships become healthier. You no longer seek others out of emptiness or fear. You seek them from fullness. You do not cling or demand. Instead, you share. You don't expect others to complete you. You simply appreciate their presence. This creates deeper, more genuine connections. Ultimately, becoming your own best friend is a lifelong practice. It means honoring your needs, speaking kindly to yourself, forgiving your mistakes, and prioritizing your inner peace. It means staying loyal to yourself even when life becomes difficult. It means choosing self-respect over self-abandonment. When you reach this state, you finally understand that the person who has been with you through every moment, the joys, the disappointments, the victories, the pain, has always been you, and that person deserves your deepest care. When you love your own company, you carry peace wherever you go. You are never truly alone because you walk with a friend within yourself. This is one of the most powerful forms of freedom and the foundation of a happy, mindful, and meaningful life. You become stronger than emotional dependence. Most people are not actually afraid of being alone. They are afraid of facing life without someone constantly holding their hand. They fear their own thoughts. They fear silence. They fear the feeling of emptiness that comes when external distractions fade. This fear makes them cling to relationships, even unhealthy ones, because the idea of being without someone feels more terrifying than being unhappy with someone. But Buddhism teaches that true emotional strength is built when you stop depending on others to regulate your inner world and learn to find stability within yourself. Emotional dependence happens when your feelings rise and fall based on someone else's actions, when their approval makes you feel valuable, their attention makes you feel hopeful, and their absence makes you feel lost. When you depend on others emotionally, you hand them control over your peace. Your happiness becomes fragile because it is tied to something you cannot control. One change in someone's mood, behavior, or presence can leave you anxious and uncertain. Most people live like this without realizing they are prisoners of their own attachment. Time alone helps you break this cycle. At first, solitude may feel uncomfortable because you suddenly become responsible for your own emotional world. There is no one to distract you from your pain, no one to tell you what to do, no one to reassure you. But this is where inner strength is formed. When you learn to sit with your feelings, whether fear, sadness, confusion, or longing, you discover that you are capable of handling yourself. You begin to trust your ability to navigate emotions without needing someone else to soothe you. This self-trust is powerful. It transforms the way you live. Instead of panicking when someone pulls away, you remain calm. Instead of begging for attention or reassurance, you find comfort within yourself. You stop basing your value on other people's opinions or presence. You understand that another person's choices do not define your worth. This emotional independence doesn't make you cold or distant, it makes you free. You can still love deeply, but you are no longer controlled by fear of losing someone. When you are emotionally dependent, relationships feel like a lifeline. You cling tightly because you believe you cannot survive without the other person. You overlook red flags. You stay even when you know you are being hurt. You compromise your values just to keep someone beside you. But when you grow emotionally independent, relationships become choices, not necessities. You stay because you want to, not because you have to. You love others from fullness, not from emptiness. You give not to fill a void, but to genuinely share. One of the most important lessons solitude teaches is how to take responsibility for your own well-being. You begin to understand that no one else is obligated to make you happy, fix your problems, or carry your pain. You learn to support yourself emotionally, comforting your wounds, calming your fears, and encouraging your growth. You stop waiting for someone else to come save you. Instead, you become your own anchor. This shift is liberating because it means your happiness is no longer dependent on circumstances outside your control. With emotional independence comes resilience. Life inevitably brings challenges, loss, heartbreak, conflict, uncertainty. If your peace depends on others, these challenges feel unbearable. But if your peace comes from within, you face difficulties with clarity and strength. You can process pain without being overwhelmed. You can let go when needed because your identity does not collapse with the ending of a relationship or friendship. You understand that change is part of life, and you trust your ability to move through it. Solitude also teaches you the difference between love and attachment. Attachment is rooted in fear, the fear of losing, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough. Love, in contrast, is rooted in freedom. Love says, "I appreciate you, but I do not own you." When you are emotionally dependent, relationships become heavy because you expect others to complete you. You place unrealistic demands on them. You want them to provide you with constant validation, attention, and reassurance. But no human being can fulfill that role forever. Emotional dependence suffocates relationships. When you are emotionally independent, you bring lightness to relationships. You do not demand that others make you whole because you already are whole. You allow people to be themselves. You respect their individuality, and you do not cling when life asks you to let go. You cherish connection without losing yourself in it. You love without attachment, and that love becomes deeper, calmer, and more stable. Learning to be happy alone helps you understand that emotions come and go like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. You begin to observe your feelings rather than becoming consumed by them. This awareness gives you emotional maturity. You learn that feelings are not enemies, they are teachers. Instead of running from sadness, you sit with it and learn what it is trying to tell you. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you explore the deeper reasons behind it. Over time, you become fluent in the language of your inner world. This emotional maturity makes life easier. When others are upset, you do not absorb their emotions. When someone leaves, you do not crumble. When someone rejects you, you do not attack yourself. You understand that people come and go, but your relationship with yourself remains constant. You learn to hold your heart gently through every season of life. You no longer fear solitude because you have built a strong, nurturing inner home. Ultimately, emotional independence is not about isolating yourself or rejecting relationships. It is about entering relationships from a place of strength rather than fear. It is about loving without losing yourself. It is about knowing that no matter what happens, who stays, who leaves, who understands, who doesn't, you will be okay because you have yourself. You trust yourself. You support yourself. You stand with yourself. When you reach this state, you discover a profound truth. The greatest security you can ever have is inner security. No person, no relationship, no external circumstance can ever replace the peace that comes from knowing you can rely on your own heart. Time alone teaches you this truth. It shows you that you are stronger than your fears, that you are capable of facing life with courage, and that you do not need to depend on anyone else to feel whole. This is the essence of real freedom, the ability to remain steady in your center, untouched by the storms around you. When you become emotionally independent, you do not stop loving. You love more deeply. But now, your love is rooted in awareness, not fear. It is rooted in inner peace, not desperation. And that kind of love is the most beautiful and enduring of all. 6. Solitude deepens creativity and awareness. When life is crowded with noise, schedules, and people, our inner voice becomes faint. We move from one task to another so quickly that we rarely pause long enough to notice the world within us. Our creativity becomes buried under routine. Our awareness becomes dull. We begin living on autopilot, reacting to life rather than experiencing it fully. But when we choose solitude, even for short, intentional moments, our inner world begins to open like a quiet garden at dawn. We start seeing life with new eyes. We begin hearing the whisper of ideas that were always present but lost beneath the noise. Solitude is not just the absence of others. It is the presence of yourself. It creates a sacred space where your mind can breathe. Modern life constantly demands that we look outward toward screens, social media, conversations, and responsibilities. But creativity lives deep within, and it only emerges when given room. When you step away from external stimulation, your mind naturally begins to wander, reflect, question, and create. Insights appear without force. Ideas begin to form on their own. You discover thoughts that were never visible before because everything was too loud to hear them. Many of the world's greatest creators, philosophers, and spiritual teachers sought solitude not because they disliked people, but because they understood that silence and stillness open doors that noise keeps shut. In solitude, Albert Einstein imagined the universe. In solitude, Buddha awakened under the Bodhi tree. In solitude, poets, artists, and inventors found inspiration that changed the world. These individuals were not born extraordinary. They simply learned how to listen deeply to themselves. When you are alone, you begin paying attention to small details that you normally overlook. You notice the changing texture of the sky, the rhythm of your breathing, the subtle shift of your emotions. You begin to see how thoughts enter and leave your mind, how feelings rise and pass like clouds. These simple observations awaken awareness. You realize that life is flowing all the time, yet we miss most of it because we are lost in distraction. Solitude invites you back into the present moment, where awareness is strongest. Awareness is the foundation of creativity. When you are aware, you are open. You notice patterns, connections, and possibilities. Ordinary things begin to feel magical. A quiet walk becomes a journey of discovery. You listen, not just with your ears, but with your entire being. You taste your food with deeper presence. You feel your emotions without judgment. Everything becomes more alive. This clarity naturally gives birth to creativity, because creativity is simply awareness expressing itself. Most people think creativity is only about art, painting, music, writing. But creativity is present in every part of life. It is in the way you solve problems, the way you understand others, the way you approach challenges, the way you express yourself. Creativity is simply the ability to see beyond the obvious. It is the ability to imagine something new. Solitude strengthens this ability because it frees your mind from imitation. When you are always surrounded by others, consciously or unconsciously, you compare and copy. Their voices mix with yours, and you lose originality. But when you spend time alone, your thoughts become clearer, more authentic, more uniquely your own. In solitude, you begin noticing the stories you've been telling yourself. Some are limiting, some are untrue. When you listen closely, you can rewrite these stories. You begin seeing possibilities where before there were none. You start daring to dream differently. Your imagination becomes a friend, guiding you inward where inspiration lives. This inner creativity doesn't necessarily produce something immediately. Sometimes it simply expands your perception. You begin seeing the same world, but with deeper understanding. Solitude also teaches patience. Creativity cannot be forced. Awareness cannot be rushed. In silence, you learn how to wait, not passively, but attentively. You begin trusting that ideas will come when the mind is calm. In Buddhism, it is said that clarity arises when the waters of the mind are still. When you sit quietly, thoughts settle like sand sinking to the bottom of a lake. The mind becomes clear. From this clarity, understanding emerges naturally. You don't have to chase it. This inner clarity enhances decision-making. When you live without awareness, you act impulsively, driven by fear, habit, or social pressure. But when you are aware, you act with intention. You can see the deeper causes of your emotions. You can understand what truly matters and why. You stop making rushed choices and begin making wise choices. You begin responding to life, not reacting to it. This shift alone can transform your entire existence. Solitude also strengthens your relationship with intuition, the quiet knowing that exists beneath logical thought. Intuition is the heart's wisdom. It speaks softly, which is why most people never hear it. But in silence, intuition becomes clearer. You start sensing what feels right and what feels wrong without needing proof. You start trusting your inner guidance. This trust is powerful because intuition often sees what logic cannot. It understands subtle truths, hidden motivations, and deeper meaning. It shows you the direction life is nudging you toward. When you follow your intuition, your path begins to align with your true nature. As your awareness deepens, your creativity becomes more effortless. You no longer need to force ideas, they arrive naturally. You might suddenly find yourself inspired to write, paint, build, or solve a problem. But even if you don't create anything tangible, your internal landscape becomes richer. You begin living from a deeper place. You feel more connected to the world. You notice synchronicities and meaning in events that previously seemed random. Life feels more vivid, more purposeful. Solitude also teaches humility. When you spend time alone, you see how vast your inner world is and how little you have explored it. You realize that much of your suffering comes not from the world outside, but from thoughts and beliefs within. As you observe these inner patterns, you learn to release what no longer serves you. You let go of old identities, fears, and attachments. This inner cleansing creates space for growth, creativity, and peace. Eventually, solitude stops feeling like a place you visit and becomes a home you carry within. Even in crowded spaces, you can return to your inner stillness. You can find silence in the midst of noise, awareness in the midst of chaos. You begin living with a calm center. Your creativity remains alive. Your awareness remains soft and steady. You no longer need to escape the world to be peaceful because peace travels with you. To deepen your creativity and awareness, you don't need to isolate yourself for long periods. Even a few minutes of intentional solitude each day can change your life. Sit quietly, listen, observe. Ask yourself what you feel, what you need, what you dream of. Without judgment, without pressure, just presence. Slowly, you will notice that your ideas become clearer, your thoughts become calmer, and your awareness becomes sharper. In the end, solitude is not about withdrawing from life. It is about returning to it with deeper clarity. It is about seeing the world as if for the first time. It is about awakening the quiet genius within you that has been waiting to be heard. When you embrace solitude, you learn that you contain endless creativity, endless awareness, and endless wisdom. You do not need the world to give you brilliance. You simply need space to uncover the brilliance already within. 7. You discover that happiness comes from within. For most of our lives, we are unconsciously trained to believe that happiness is something outside of us. We think that if we find the right person, the right job, the right environment, the right body, or the right possessions, then we will finally be at peace. We grow up imagining that joy is waiting somewhere out there, just beyond our reach, and all we have to do is chase it hard enough. As a result, many people spend their entire lives running toward people, achievements, pleasures, distractions, never realizing that they are running away from themselves. But one day, when life becomes quiet, when the noise fades, when the world stops giving what we expect, a gentle truth begins to appear. Happiness is not something you find. It is something you uncover within. Solitude is what brings this truth to light. When you spend time alone, without leaning on external stimulation or attention, you begin to notice something extraordinary. You start becoming familiar with your own inner world. At first, you might notice discomfort, restlessness, or boredom. This happens because the mind is used to noise. It is used to being entertained. When the distractions disappear, the mind doesn't know where to go, so it turns inward. This turning inward is the beginning of true self-discovery. In that inward journey, you begin to realize that the peace you were searching for was never lost. It was simply buried under layers of expectations, fears, desires, and noise. Happiness stems from a silent place inside you, a place untouched by the changing world. When you are alone, you notice that you can sit quietly and feel calm without needing anything special to happen. You may simply sit by a window and watch the light move across the floor. You may breathe slowly and feel your heart settle. You may listen to the quiet pulse of your thoughts. In these small, still moments, something beautiful happens. You experience contentment without any external trigger. That is the first sign that happiness lives inside you. Most people tie their emotional well-being to what happens around them. Someone loves them, they feel good. Someone criticizes them, they feel worthless. Something goes their way, they celebrate. Something disappoints them, they fall apart. Their inner world is constantly tossed around by events they cannot control. But when you learn to enjoy being alone, you begin separating your inner peace from the external world. You understand that events may change, people may come and go, and life may shift without warning, but your inner peace can remain steady. You realize you have a sanctuary inside you that nothing can touch. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment, clinging to what changes. We cling to relationships, wanting them to last forever. We cling to possessions, fearing we might lose them. We cling to ideas about ourselves, panicking when life doesn't match them. When we depend on external things to make us happy, we create fragile happiness. The moment those things change, happiness collapses. But when you find happiness within, nothing outside has the power to take it away. You stop clinging because you no longer depend on the world to feel complete. Time alone shows you that peace does not require perfect conditions. It arises from the acceptance of the present moment. When you sit alone, you are not performing. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to impress anyone. You are simply being. In this state of presence, the mind stops reaching outward and begins resting. Thoughts lose their urgency, worries soften. In that stillness, you begin to feel a quiet joy emerging. This joy is not loud or dramatic. It is gentle, like a warm candle that slowly fills a dark room. And once you feel it, even for a moment, you realize that happiness has always been inside you. You just needed silence to hear it. When you find happiness within, your relationship with the world changes. You no longer try to control everything to feel safe. You stop chasing people who do not value you. You stop forcing life to fulfill your desires. Instead, you begin to appreciate things as they are. You develop gratitude for the simplest experiences: a peaceful morning, a cup of tea, a quiet walk, the company of your thoughts. You stop searching for extraordinary moments and find beauty in ordinary ones. Because you no longer feel empty, you stop desperately trying to fill yourself with possessions or attention. The world becomes lighter. As inner happiness grows, you develop emotional resilience. Difficulties still come: loss, heartbreak, failure, but they do not destroy you. Instead of drowning, you observe your emotions like waves that rise and fall. You learn to stay grounded in your inner center. Pain becomes a part of your experience, not your identity. You understand that all feelings pass, and beneath them, your inner peace remains intact. This strength does not come from avoiding pain, but from knowing that you can face it without losing yourself. You learn to trust your ability to navigate life. Happiness from within is not passive. It awakens curiosity, beauty, compassion, and creativity. When your heart is no longer tangled in constant need, it becomes free to explore, to learn, to love genuinely. You love others because you want to, not because you fear being alone. Your love becomes lighter, deeper, and freer. You give without expecting. You connect without clinging. You stay without forcing. You leave without bitterness. This kind of love can only come from someone who is anchored inside themselves. Spending time alone deepens self-understanding. You begin asking questions: what truly matters to me? What makes me feel alive? What aligns with my soul? You listen to your inner guidance instead of blindly following others. You begin noticing patterns: what brings peace, what causes stress, what opens your heart, and what closes it. With this awareness, you make choices that honor your inner truth. Instead of living reactively, you begin living intentionally. Your life starts to feel more authentic and meaningful because it reflects who you really are, not who others want you to be. When you find happiness within, your relationship with failure changes. You no longer judge yourself harshly. You understand that mistakes are part of the journey. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you learn from experiences and continue forward with patience. You no longer seek constant approval because you have built inner confidence. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that every path is unique. Inner happiness protects you from the emotional roller coaster of comparison. You appreciate your own journey and celebrate others without feeling threatened. Living with inner happiness also means accepting impermanence. You understand that nothing in life is permanent: relationships, success, youth, health, circumstances. Instead of resisting change, you learn to flow with it. You appreciate moments while they are here, and when they pass, you let them go without resentment. This acceptance brings tremendous peace. You stop mourning what could have been and begin honoring what is. You stop waiting for the perfect moment to be happy and start finding happiness in this moment, exactly as it is. The deepest happiness is born from connection to yourself. When you are comfortable in your own presence, the world becomes an extension of your inner home. You feel peaceful with others, but you do not feel lost without them. You feel grateful for love, but you do not fear its absence. You feel joy in experiences, but you do not depend on them. You stand rooted in your own being. This is true independence, not the isolation of the body, but the freedom of the mind. In Buddhism, there is a simple truth. Peace begins when you stop looking outside for happiness. The outside world can offer pleasure, comfort, excitement, and companionship, but none of these are permanent. The only lasting peace comes from within. When you realize this, you stop struggling. You stop searching everywhere. You stop begging life to give you more. Instead, you turn inward and discover a quiet, steady flame that has been burning all along. This inner flame is your true nature. It does not waver when circumstances change. It does not disappear when others leave. It does not weaken with age or loss. It simply waits for you to notice. When you begin nurturing this inner flame through silence, self-reflection, and presence, it grows. It begins lighting every part of your life. It gives you strength, wisdom, joy, and calmness. It guides your choices and aligns your heart with what is real. Ultimately, solitude teaches you the most liberating truth. You already have what you were looking for. You always did. Underneath fears, beneath desires, behind distractions, your inner peace was waiting. Learning to be happy alone is simply learning to return to yourself, to the quiet, gentle presence within, where happiness begins and never ends. When you reach this realization, life no longer feels like a battle. It feels like a journey, one you walk with open eyes, steady steps, and a peaceful heart. You carry happiness wherever you go because you have found the source within. 8. Alone time teaches you to live in the present moment. Human beings spend most of their lives everywhere except where they truly are. The body may sit in one place, But the mind is always traveling, moving into memories of what has already happened, imagining the future that has not yet arrived, replaying old conversations, worrying about possibilities, comparing with others, planning tomorrow, or regretting yesterday. This endless movement of the mind creates suffering because it disconnects us from the only place where life actually exists, the present moment. Solitude invites us back into this moment. It teaches us to live with awareness, to experience life fully rather than just thinking about it. When you are constantly surrounded by others, your attention is often pulled outward. You react to conversations, expectations, responsibilities, and the emotional energy of everyone around you. But when you spend time alone, the external noise fades. There is nothing to distract you from the present moment. You notice your breath, the way your body feels, the subtle sounds around you. You start seeing the world not through hurried eyes, but through calm awareness. This simple act of paying attention begins to transform your life. Most of us rush through our days without truly being alive. We eat without tasting, walk without noticing, speak without thinking, breathe without feeling. We rush from one task to the next, always chasing something. We tell ourselves that happiness is ahead of us in the future when we achieve a goal, buy something new, meet someone, or reach a milestone. But when that moment arrives, we barely notice it because the mind immediately jumps to the next goal. The chase never ends, and life becomes a blur. Solitude interrupts this unconscious movement. It reminds you that life is happening now, not later. When you are alone, you have the space to slow down. You begin realizing that the ordinary moments you once overlooked are filled with richness. A cup of tea becomes a ritual. A quiet walk becomes meditation. Watching the sky becomes a lesson in impermanence. Listening to your breath becomes a doorway to peace. The present moment stops being an obstacle you pass through on your way to the future. It becomes a destination. You begin to live more deeply. Living in the present moment does not mean rejecting the past or ignoring the future. It simply means not becoming lost in them. The past is a memory. The future is imagination. Only the present moment is real. When you practice being present, you discover that worrying about the future does not change it, and obsessing over the past does not fix it. You begin releasing fears, regrets, and mental noise. This release creates inner freedom. In Buddhism, mindfulness is the foundation of wisdom. It is the practice of bringing your full awareness into the present. When you are mindful, everything becomes more vivid. Washing dishes becomes a simple joy. Sitting becomes rest instead of restlessness. Breathing becomes an act of gratitude. You start sensing life directly rather than thinking about it. You realize that peace is not found in changing your circumstances, but in changing how you relate to them. Alone time deepens this mindfulness because there are fewer distractions. You can focus your attention inward. You notice how thoughts appear, move, and disappear. You notice how emotions rise like waves and then fade. You learn not to chase them or run from them. You simply observe. Over time, you realize that thoughts are not who you are. They are just mental events passing through your awareness. This realization brings tremendous peace because you stop being controlled by your mind. Instead, your mind becomes an instrument, not a master. When you live in the present moment, your relationship with time changes. You stop rushing. You stop waiting for the next thing. You understand that nothing is missing. This moment, even with its imperfections, is enough. You begin to appreciate what is in front of you rather than dreaming of what could be. Contentment grows naturally. You start feeling grateful for small things: sunlight, laughter, quiet mornings, warm food, fresh air, deep sleep. Gratitude becomes your natural state, not something you force. One of the greatest gifts of living in the present is that it quiets anxiety. Anxiety is born from mental time travel, imagining negative possibilities, fearing outcomes, or trying to control what you cannot. When you return to the present, anxiety loses its power because it has no real ground to stand on. The present moment is almost always manageable. The mind makes life difficult only when it wanders. Solitude trains you to return gently, again and again, to the now. Present moment awareness also strengthens your connection with nature. When you are alone, you may become more curious about the world around you, the way leaves move in the wind, how shadows change with the sun, the rhythm of birds singing, the softness of air on your skin. These small observations awaken a sense of wonder. You realize that the world is alive and magical when you actually look. Even the silence of nature feels rich, as if the universe is gently speaking. The present moment becomes a sacred teacher. Living in the present moment also softens your relationship with yourself. You stop judging yourself based on the past or idealizing the future. You meet yourself where you are, with compassion. You see your growth, your struggles, your efforts all happening right here. You stop waiting to be better before accepting yourself. You realize that you are worthy now. This acceptance is healing. It builds trust within. You learn to be patient with your journey instead of rushing to reach some final version of yourself. Over time, presence changes the way you relate to others. You begin to listen more deeply because your mind is not lost in thought. You notice details, tone, emotion, body language. You respond rather than react. Your conversations become richer, your relationships more sincere. You bring your full self to each moment, and people feel that. When you are present, you become a grounding force for others. Your calmness spreads. Another gift of present moment living is freedom from comparison. When the mind is in the present, it is not thinking about other people's lives. It is not comparing your journey to theirs. It is not judging your progress. You simply live. You honor your path. You recognize that each person is on their own timeline. This realization relieves pressure. You stop competing. You stop chasing approval. You begin living for yourself. Joy replaces jealousy. Satisfaction replaces insecurity. When you learn to be present, you understand that life unfolds one breath at a time. There is no need to rush. There is no need to force. You discover a rhythm, a natural flow that guides you. You begin trusting life rather than trying to control it. This trust brings deep peace because you understand that life is always happening for you, not against you. You become more relaxed, open, and flexible. Time spent alone teaches you that you can create peace anywhere. You no longer need specific conditions to be happy. You can be sitting in a quiet room, walking outside, or waiting in a line and still feel peaceful because peace comes from your awareness, not your surroundings. This is true power carrying peace within you wherever you go. You stop seeking escape because you no longer feel imprisoned by your thoughts. As you deepen your presence, you begin noticing that every moment is fleeting. Joy, sadness, pleasure, pain, success, failure, all arise and pass. This awareness helps you embrace life fully. You learn to savor good moments without clinging and to endure difficult ones without despair. You understand that everything is temporary, but every moment matters. You begin living life with gentle wisdom, appreciating what comes, letting go when it leaves. In Buddhism, there is a teaching: when walking, walk; when eating, eat. It sounds simple, but it is profound. It means be here. Do one thing with full awareness. When you live like this, nothing feels boring. Even simple tasks become meaningful. Your mind becomes still. Your heart becomes peaceful. You discover that life is not found in some distant dream. It is here, in each breath. Ultimately, alone time teaches you that the present moment is not just a concept, it is a doorway to peace. When you step through that doorway, you stop chasing life and begin living it. You stop searching for happiness and start experiencing it. You stop surviving time and start inhabiting it. The present moment becomes your true home. When you learn to return to this moment again and again, you begin to understand that nothing is missing. You are already complete. The world around you is already enough, and life, in all its simplicity, becomes sacred. Joe, solitude helps you hear your inner calling and build a life true to yourself. Most people live their lives following paths that were never truly theirs. They choose careers because society told them to. They enter relationships because they feared loneliness. They adopt beliefs because they were raised to, not because they deeply understood them. Slowly, without realizing it, they drift farther away from who they really are. By the time they pause to look inward, many discover their lives have become echoes of other people's expectations. They are surrounded by noise voices telling them what they should want, who they should be, how they should live. In such chaos, it is nearly impossible to hear one's inner calling. That calling is always present, but it speaks softly, like a whisper, and only solitude makes that whisper audible. When you spend time alone, the external voices fall silent, the expectations fade, the pressure to meet standards disappears. You begin to relax into your own being. At first, you may feel unsure, even uneasy, but slowly a clarity arises, not forced, not loud, but gentle and true. You begin to sense desires that have been buried under years of distraction. You recognize dreams you once abandoned. You remember who you were before the world told you who to become. That is the beginning of returning to yourself. Every person is born with a unique inner compass. It is an intuitive sense of direction, what feels right, what feels meaningful, what brings a sense of aliveness. But many people ignore this compass because they are conditioned to prioritize external approval over internal truth. They follow paths that look successful on the outside, but feel empty on the inside. They achieve milestones that impress others, but do not fulfill their soul. Eventually, they wonder why life feels dull, even though it appears complete. Solitude reveals the answer. They have been living someone else's story. When you sit quietly with yourself, without distraction, you begin to hear your inner voice. This voice is not dramatic. It does not shout. It invites. It nudges. It feels like a gentle pull towards something meaningful. It may call you toward creativity, writing, painting, music. It may guide you toward nature, teaching, healing, or building. It may lead you toward simplicity rather than ambition. Whatever form it takes, your inner calling feels natural. It does not require force. Instead of pushing, it draws you forward. But hearing your inner calling requires courage because often it goes against the expectations of others. It may ask you to change careers, leave relationships, take risks, try new paths, or make difficult choices. It may lead you away from what is familiar into the unknown. Many people avoid solitude because they are afraid of hearing truths that demand change. They would rather remain distracted than face the responsibility of living authentically. But peace is only found on the path that belongs to you, not the one chosen for you. Solitude gives you space to question your life. You begin to ask, what makes me feel alive? What am I holding on to out of fear? What dreams still live inside me? What am I longing to create, experience, or learn? Which choices are mine and which belong to others? These questions open the door to transformation. They reveal the difference between a life that is merely comfortable and a life that is deeply meaningful. When you begin answering honestly, you reclaim your power. In solitude, you also begin to see patterns: how often you choose out of fear rather than love, how often you say yes to avoid disappointing others, how often you shrink your dreams to stay safe. This awareness is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to create freedom. When you see the truth, you can change it. You can choose differently. You can gently guide yourself toward a life that honors your inner calling rather than betrays it. Your inner calling is not always about grand achievements. Sometimes it whispers simple things. Live quietly, grow your own food, care for children, learn a craft, help your community, heal your wounds, explore spirituality, or travel to understand the world. The size of the calling does not matter. What matters is that it is yours. When you follow what is true for you, meaning appears in the ordinary. Peace does not come from doing more. It comes from doing what aligns with your heart. As you spend time alone and deepen your self-awareness, you begin building confidence in your path. You stop seeking permission from others. You stop asking whether people approve of your choices. You understand that no one else can truly know your path because they do not carry your soul. They cannot feel your inner pull. They can only guess. The only person who feels what is authentic for you is you. Solitude trains you to trust that. Following your inner calling does not mean abandoning responsibilities or becoming careless. It means making choices that honor your spirit while still living mindfully in the world. It means creating balance, a life that supports both inner truth and daily existence. This balance requires patience. You do not need to change your life overnight. You can take small steps. You can slowly align your choices with your heart. Over time, these small decisions shape a life that feels deeply yours. One of the greatest challenges in following your inner calling is letting go of comparison. When you live among others, it is easy to look at their paths and wonder if you are behind, lacking, or different. But solitude reveals a profound truth. Every soul has its own timing. You may bloom later than others. You may take a path no one around you understands. That is not failure. It is authenticity. Flowers do not compete. They simply open when they are ready. You too will unfold in your time. As you follow your inner calling, you begin shedding layers that never belong to you. You release old identities, expectations, and roles. You let go of relationships that cannot grow with you. You learn to walk away from places where your spirit feels small. This process can be painful, but it is necessary. A snake must shed its old skin to survive. A person must shed their old self to live fully. Solitude makes this shedding possible because it gives you space to grow without interruption. Over time, your outer life begins to reflect your inner truth. You feel more aligned, more grounded, more confident. You begin waking up with purpose. Your relationships become deeper because you are no longer hiding parts of yourself. You speak more honestly. You love more freely. You stop pretending. You show up as yourself, not a version designed to make others comfortable, but a version that honors your soul. This authenticity attracts the right people and experiences into your life. You no longer chase belonging. Belonging finds you. Living true to yourself brings a profound sense of fulfillment. It is not always easy, but it is deeply rewarding. You feel a quiet satisfaction that cannot be explained. You may still experience challenges, but they feel worthwhile because they are part of your own journey. You are no longer living someone else's script. You are writing your own. The ultimate gift of solitude is that it leads you home to yourself. When you listen deeply, when you breathe, when you sit in quiet honesty, you discover that your life has always been speaking to you. Your soul has always been guiding you. The noise of the world only made it difficult to hear. But now, with silence as your companion, you recognize that your calling is not outside you, it is within. When you finally choose to follow that inner calling, even in small ways, life begins to open. Doors appear where none existed. Opportunities arise. People come into your life who resonate with your journey. Challenges transform into growth. You realize that the universe was never against you. It was simply waiting for you to align with your truth. Once you do, life supports you, not because everything becomes easy, but because everything becomes meaningful. Solitude teaches you that the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. When that relationship is honest and loving, your life becomes a sacred expression of your soul. You no longer feel lost because you are guided from within. You no longer feel hollow because you are living from your essence. You no longer feel disconnected because you are walking the path meant for you. In the end, hearing your inner calling and building a life true to yourself is one of the greatest acts of courage and love. It is how you honor your existence. It is how you thank life for the gift of your individuality. Solitude is the doorway to that truth. When you walk through it, you come face to face with yourself, the real you, and that meeting changes everything. 10. You learn that inner peace is a skill you can build over time. Most people speak about peace as if it is something that appears by luck. They believe peace happens only when life is perfect, when problems disappear, when relationships are harmonious, when money flows easily, and when circumstances align exactly as they want. Because of this belief, peace feels distant, fragile, and dependent on things outside of them. Yet Buddhism teaches a very different truth. Peace is not a gift life hands to you. Peace is a skill you build within yourself. Solitude is the training ground where this skill is slowly cultivated. When you first begin spending time alone, your mind may feel chaotic. Thoughts race, old memories surface, worries about the future swirl. You may feel restless, uncomfortable, even anxious. This is normal because your mind is not used to stillness. It has been trained to constantly move, to constantly react. Sitting alone forces you to face the truth that your mind, not your life circumstances, is the source of much of your suffering. But this realization, though uncomfortable, is liberating. If the mind creates suffering, then the mind can also learn to create peace. Inner peace begins with awareness. You start noticing your thoughts without becoming trapped by them. You observe patterns, how quickly the mind jumps into fear, how it replays old stories, how it clings to worries. Instead of resisting these thoughts, you learn to let them rise and fall like waves. You no longer chase them or fight them, you watch. With time, observing the mind becomes easier. You understand that thoughts lose power when you stop feeding them with attention. This awareness is the first step toward peace. In solitude, you also learn to separate yourself from your emotions. You may feel sadness, anger, fear, or confusion. In the past, you may have been overwhelmed by these emotions, but alone, without distraction, you learn to feel without drowning. You sit with your emotions gently, like sitting with a friend who is hurting. You listen to what they are telling you. You notice how they arise, peak, and eventually fade. This experience teaches you that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. This truth alone softens suffering. Inner peace also requires patience. Just as a seed does not become a tree overnight, peace does not take root instantly. You must nurture it with practice, meditation, slow breathing, journaling, silent reflection. These are tools that water the soil of your heart. At first, you may see no change, but slowly your inner world shifts. You begin responding to life with more calmness. You begin choosing silence over reaction. You begin letting go rather than clinging. Peace grows quietly. Buddhism teaches that peace comes from acceptance, accepting life as it is, rather than constantly fighting it. When you are alone, you begin to see how much energy you spend resisting reality. You replay conversations wishing they went differently. You worry about futures that have not happened. You cling to desires that cause suffering. In solitude, you begin releasing this resistance. You come to understand that life flows whether you fight it or not. Peace comes when you stop fighting. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up. It means acknowledging what is, without denying or exaggerating it. When you accept the present moment, you free yourself to take wise action. You stop acting out of fear and begin acting from clarity. Acceptance brings peace because it frees you from the exhausting battle against reality. As peace grows, you learn that silence is not empty, it is full. It is filled with space, space to breathe, space to reflect, space to heal. Silence becomes a kind companion rather than an enemy. It gives you time to rest from the noise of life. It helps you reconnect with your center. This inner center is like the eye of a storm, calm, steady, untouched by chaos. Inner peace also teaches you detachment, not coldness, but freedom. Detachment means loving without holding too tightly, working without being consumed by results, living without clinging to expectations. When you are detached, you enjoy life deeply, but you are not controlled by it. You appreciate relationships, but you do not lose yourself in them. You pursue goals, but your identity is not tied to success or failure. You live with openness. This freedom brings great peace. In solitude, you begin simplifying your internal world. You question your beliefs. You release old stories. You let go of grudges. You forgive. You stop carrying emotional baggage that weighed you down. This inner cleaning is not easy, but it is liberating. Each burden you release makes room for peace. You begin seeing that many of your problems were not caused by life, but by the meanings your mind attached to events. Peace deepens as you develop compassion toward yourself. You stop expecting perfection. You allow yourself to make mistakes. You speak to yourself kindly. Compassion softens the inner critic. It allows you to rest. When you are kind to yourself, the mind relaxes. Tension dissolves. Peace becomes more accessible. Another important part of inner peace is slowing down. Modern life teaches us to rush, to multitask, to always seek more. This race leaves us disconnected from ourselves. Solitude interrupts this momentum. It invites you to breathe slowly, to act with presence, to savor each moment. When you slow down, your mind finds rest. Your nervous system calms. You begin reconnecting with your inner wisdom rather than reacting automatically. Over time, you begin seeing life differently. Instead of chasing happiness, you cultivate peace. Instead of controlling everything, you trust. Instead of fearing change, you embrace it. Peace becomes your way of living, not just a temporary feeling. You respond to difficulties with steadiness. You communicate with clarity instead of anger. You face uncertainty with courage instead of panic. This transformation happens gradually, like dawn slowly turning into day. Inner peace does not mean life will be perfect. You will still face challenges, losses, disappointments. But peace protects you from being destroyed by them. It becomes a steady foundation beneath your feet. When storms come, you bend but do not break. You acknowledge the pain without letting it consume you. You learn that peace is not the absence of difficulty. Peace is the strength that carries you through difficulty. As peace deepens, you begin seeing the world through softer eyes. You notice beauty everywhere in silence, in nature, in meaningful conversations, in small acts of kindness. You become grateful for simple moments. You stop craving extraordinary experiences to feel alive. The ordinary becomes enough. Peace helps you appreciate life as it is, rather than longing for what it could be. Eventually, inner peace becomes part of your identity. It becomes the energy you carry into every space. People feel calm around you. They trust your presence. They sense your steadiness. You begin influencing the world without trying. Your peace becomes a gift to others. But this gift begins with time alone, with the willingness to face yourself, to heal, to learn, to grow. The truth is that inner peace is always available. It is not far away. It lives beneath layers of noise, fear, and conditioning. Solitude removes these layers. It helps you remember that peace is your natural state. When you return to yourself, peace returns to you. It becomes the quiet rhythm of your life. In the end, you realize that peace is not accidental. It is intention, it is practice, it is choice. It is a lifelong journey, not a destination. Each moment gives you an opportunity to cultivate it. You build it breath by breath, thought by thought, day by day. And as you continue nurturing it, peace becomes not just something you experience, it becomes who you are. 11. Throughout life, every person carries emotional experiences that shape who they become. Some memories are joyful, bringing warmth to the heart, while others carry pain, loss, betrayal, disappointment, rejection, misunderstanding, or loneliness. Most people do not know how to process these painful experiences. Instead, they bury them beneath distractions, keep themselves busy, or numb their feelings by constantly seeking company, entertainment, or noise. The wound is never truly healed. It simply hides. And because it hides, it silently influences behavior, relationships, choices, and self-image. Solitude offers a powerful gift. It creates a safe inner space where emotional wounds can rise gently to the surface and finally be acknowledged, understood, and released. When you first begin spending time alone, memories you avoided may reappear. Feelings you thought had disappeared may return. The heart may feel heavy. Many people interpret this as a sign that solitude is harmful or depressing, but this is not true. These emotions surface because they are ready to be healed. They have lived inside you for years, waiting for the moment you would stop running and finally listen. Solitude is not the cause of your pain. It is the mirror that allows you to see what has always been there. Healing begins with awareness. You notice the unresolved emotions you have carried, perhaps resentment towards someone who hurt you, guilt for decisions you regret, sadness from relationships that ended, or fear formed in childhood. These emotions carry energy, and when unprocessed, they continue influencing your present. They affect how deeply you trust, how open you are, how you love, how you speak, and even how you see yourself. Solitude gives you the chance to sit with these feelings patiently, without judgment. You allow them to exist without trying to suppress or escape them. This gentle acceptance is the beginning of healing. In Buddhist teachings, suffering continues when we push away pain or cling to it. Solitude teaches us a middle way to sit with pain, to listen to it, but not to become it. When you allow your emotions to surface, you begin to understand their roots. You see that the person who hurt you may have acted from their own wounds. You recognize that some events were not your fault. You realize that holding on to old pain does not protect you, it only keeps you trapped in the past. Awareness opens the heart to forgiveness, not because others deserve it necessarily, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness in solitude is different from forgiveness forced by others. It is not about pretending everything is fine or forgetting what happened. Rather, it is about releasing the emotional grip that past events have on your heart. Forgiveness means saying, "I no longer want to carry this burden." When you forgive, you free yourself, not the other person. You stop allowing old pain to define your present. This creates emotional space for joy, trust, and love to grow again. Solitude also helps you heal by teaching you self-compassion. Many people speak to themselves with harshness. They blame themselves for past mistakes, judge themselves for not being stronger, or criticize themselves for feeling hurt. They treat themselves in ways they would never treat another person. But when you sit alone long enough, you learn to soften. You begin to see that the version of you who made mistakes was doing the best they could with the awareness they had. You understand that your younger self needed love, not punishment. You learn to offer yourself kindness. This internal gentleness is one of the deepest forms of healing. When emotional wounds remain unhealed, they often manifest in subtle ways. You may find yourself withdrawing when someone gets close because you fear being hurt again. You may anger easily because unresolved pain rests beneath the surface. You may cling to people because you fear abandonment. You may question your worth because someone in the past made you feel small. These patterns are not signs of weakness, they are signs of injury. Just as a physical wound requires rest and care to heal, emotional wounds require space, silence, and attention. Solitude provides that environment. As you spend more time alone, you learn to face difficult emotions without collapsing. Sadness becomes something you can hold, like a child needing comfort. Fear becomes something you can breathe through, rather than something that overwhelms you. Anger becomes a teacher that reveals where you still feel unprotected. You begin to view emotions not as enemies, but as messengers. They tell you what needs healing, what needs letting go, and what needs understanding. Healing also involves letting go of past versions of yourself. You may have been someone who accepted mistreatment because you didn't know how to set boundaries. You may have been someone who stayed silent to avoid conflict. You may have been someone who chased love because you didn't yet know how to love yourself. Solitude helps you see these patterns clearly. It helps you understand how they formed, and slowly, gently, you begin to release them. You stop blaming yourself for who you were and start appreciating who you are becoming. Letting go is not forgetting, it is accepting that the past cannot be changed. It is choosing to release emotional weight so the heart can breathe again. Holding on to pain may feel familiar, but it keeps you from living fully. When you let go, you create space for peace, joy, and new experiences. You stop living through old stories and open yourself to new possibilities. This transformation does not happen in a single moment. It unfolds gradually, with patience and compassion. Solitude also teaches you boundaries, what you will accept and what you will no longer allow. When you heal, you become more protective of your peace. You learn to say no to relationships that drain you. You release friendships that are rooted only in need, not love. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop giving your energy to situations that damage your well-being. Healing gives you clarity, and with clarity comes strength. You become less afraid of losing people because you are no longer willing to lose yourself. Over time, you develop emotional independence. You realize you can soothe yourself, support yourself, and care for yourself. You no longer depend on others to validate your worth. You begin creating a safe inner home, a place inside you where you feel grounded and protected. This inner home becomes a refuge during difficult times. When life becomes overwhelming, you retreat inward not to escape, but to restore. You trust yourself to face whatever comes. Healing through solitude also reconnects you to your body. Emotional wounds often live not only in the mind, but also in the body: tight shoulders, heavy chest, clenched jaw, restless stomach. These physical sensations are messages. They ask for attention. When you sit quietly, you begin to notice where your body holds pain. You breathe into those areas. You release tension slowly. You reconnect with your physical self. Over time, the body learns to relax. The nervous system calms. Peace returns. As healing deepens, you begin seeing the world with softer eyes. You feel more compassion for others because you understand that everyone carries invisible wounds. You realize that hurtful behavior often comes from hurt people. You stop taking things personally. You accept that everyone is on their own journey. This understanding brings peace to your interactions. You respond with calmness rather than reaction, forgiveness rather than judgment. Eventually, solitude transforms from something you do into something you embody. You carry inner stillness with you, even in busy spaces. You can be surrounded by people yet remain centered. You have learned to listen to yourself deeply. You have built trust with your inner world. You have healed enough to move forward with grace. The past no longer controls you. It becomes a chapter, not your identity. Healing is not linear. Some days feel light, others feel heavy. Some memories dissolve, others return unexpectedly. But you are no longer afraid because you understand that healing is not about erasing pain, it is about creating peace around it. Solitude has given you tools to face life with resilience, clarity, and compassion. The greatest gift of healing through solitude is that it frees you to become yourself again. It restores parts of you that were lost. It helps you reconnect with your inner child, the curious, open, playful part of you that existed before fear and pain entered your life. You begin seeing life with renewed wonder. You find joy in small things. You trust love again. You allow yourself to dream. In the end, solitude becomes a sacred temple where the heart gently releases what no longer serves it. You emerge lighter, wiser, and more whole. You realize that healing was never about becoming someone new. It was about returning to who you truly are, beneath the wounds, beneath the fear, beneath the silence. A deeper, softer, more peaceful version of yourself. 12. Solitude shows you that you are complete without external validation. Human beings are social by nature. From childhood, we learn to seek approval from the world around us. We look to parents, teachers, friends, and later society to confirm our worth. A compliment makes us feel valuable. Criticism makes us doubt ourselves. We begin to measure our identity by how others react to us rather than who we truly are. Without realizing it, we hand the power of our self-esteem to the outside world. We let others decide whether we are enough. This dependence on external validation is one of the deepest sources of suffering. Solitude slowly dissolves this dependence. It helps you discover that you are complete within yourself. When you step into solitude, there is no one to impress. No one is watching. No one is judging. No one is evaluating your appearance, success, or behavior. The world becomes quiet. In that stillness, you begin to sense an unfamiliar truth. You exist without needing to prove anything. You realize that even without applause, acceptance, or admiration, you are whole. There is nothing missing. This experience can be unsettling at first because we are accustomed to measuring ourselves through comparison and approval. But as you remain in solitude, this truth becomes comforting. You begin to breathe more freely. External validation acts like a drug. It gives temporary pleasure, a momentary feeling of importance, but soon fades. You then crave more praise, more approval, more recognition. You start shaping your life around what others expect rather than what feels true to you. You become afraid of disappointing people. You avoid risks because you fear judgment. You compare yourself to others endlessly. In this chase for validation, you lose connection with your inner self. You lose the ability to hear your own voice. Solitude is the medicine for this imbalance because it removes the constant influence of others and allows you to rediscover who you are independent of their opinions. As you spend time alone, you begin noticing how much of your identity was built around external perception. You might realize that you pursued certain goals not because they fulfilled you, but because they earned approval. You may see that you behaved a certain way simply to be liked. You may have hidden parts of yourself to fit in. Solitude gives you the clarity to observe these patterns without shame. It teaches you to gently question, if no one were watching, what would I truly choose? Who would I be? These questions begin unraveling a lifetime of conditioning. Slowly, you begin to understand that approval is a moving target. People change. Their opinions shift. What pleases one person offends another. You could spend your entire life trying to meet expectations and still be criticized. The path of external validation never ends. But when you start listening to your inner voice, you discover grounding. You see that your worth does not depend on praise. You do not need to be extraordinary to be valuable. You are valuable because you exist. This understanding takes root slowly but deeply. In Buddhism, there is a teaching: do not seek others' approval, seek the approval of your own heart. This does not mean becoming selfish or ignoring others. It means recognizing that the true measure of your life is how aligned you are with your inner truth. Only you know whether you are living honestly. Only you know whether your choices feel genuine or forced. Solitude gives you space to reflect on this alignment. It helps you see where you compromise your truth for acceptance. It gives you courage to change. When you stop seeking validation, your relationship with yourself begins to transform. You start listening to your thoughts with curiosity rather than judgment. You begin trusting your feelings instead of dismissing them. You honor your desires even when they differ from others' expectations. You stop apologizing for being who you are. You stand more confidently in your own skin. This confidence is not loud. It is quiet, steady, grounded. As this inner confidence grows, external praise becomes pleasant but unnecessary. Criticism becomes informative but not defining. You no longer collapse under judgment because you have built an inner foundation that is stronger than outside opinions. You realize that no one else's opinion can truly capture the fullness of who you are. People see fragments. Only you live the whole journey. Solitude also teaches you to appreciate your inner qualities. When you are alone, you notice your strengths, your resilience, your compassion, your creativity, your curiosity. You see how you comfort yourself during difficulty, how you learn from mistakes, how you grow from hardship. These qualities often go unnoticed when you are focused on external feedback. But in solitude, you begin recognizing your own beauty. You begin respecting yourself. This self-respect leads to healthier boundaries. When you value yourself internally, you no longer tolerate relationships where you must constantly prove your worth. You stop surrounding yourself with people who criticize or belittle you. You no longer accept emotional crumbs. You become more selective, not out of arrogance, but out of self-care. You understand that your energy is sacred. You choose relationships that nourish rather than drain you. With self-worth rooted within, you also begin taking risks you once avoided. You pursue dreams not because they guarantee applause, but because they align with your heart. You create without fear of judgment. You express yourself freely. You no longer need approval to begin. You no longer need permission to exist. This inner freedom brings joy because your actions are guided by authenticity rather than fear. Solitude also teaches gentle humility. You see that you do not need to be superior to anyone. You do not need to compete constantly. You learn that your worth does not increase when others approve or decrease when they disapprove. It simply remains. Everyone is walking their own path. Everyone struggles. Everyone searches. When you stop seeking validation, you become more compassionate toward others because you are no longer trying to prove anything. You meet people with openness, not comparison. In time, solitude reveals the deepest truth. The only validation you truly need is your own. When your heart feels aligned with your actions, when your choices reflect your values, when your behavior resonates with your inner truth, there is no greater approval. It brings quiet confidence. It brings contentment that no one can take away. Instead of constantly asking, "What will others think?" you begin asking, "What feels right?" And that question guides you toward a life that feels deeply meaningful. You start walking a path that is true to your spirit. You stop worrying about being misunderstood because you understand yourself. You stop fearing rejection because you no longer reject yourself. You stop chasing love because you already carry love within. One day, you look back and realize that the validation you spent years chasing never brought lasting peace. The approval you waited for never created fulfillment. The only thing that ever brought real peace was learning to accept yourself. Solitude gave you this gift. It taught you that beneath all the noise, beneath all the roles, beneath all the expectations, you are enough exactly as you are. This realization is liberation. It frees you from the endless cycle of performance. It frees you from the fear of judgment. It frees you from the burden of pretending. You stand whole, complete, rooted in your being. You finally understand that the person you were seeking approval from most was yourself. And now you have given it. You approve of your existence. You accept who you are. You honor your truth. You live from within. This is the freedom solitude brings. This is the peace that cannot be shaken. 13. Solitude teaches you to enjoy simplicity and find joy in the little things. In a world that constantly pushes us toward more achievement, more status, more possessions, more entertainment, it becomes easy to overlook the beauty of simple things. We begin to believe that happiness is something grand and rare, hidden in extraordinary experiences. We imagine joy will come only when we reach a major milestone, acquire something expensive, or receive public recognition. But this constant pursuit leaves many people exhausted, dissatisfied, and disconnected from the richness of everyday life. Solitude gently teaches us that joy does not lie in the extraordinary. It lives quietly in the ordinary, waiting to be noticed. When you spend time alone, without distractions, without noise, without demands, your senses sharpen. The world slows down enough for you to actually see it. You begin noticing things you once ignored, the way sunlight paints patterns on the floor, how tea warms your hands, how leaves dance in the wind, how your breath feels as it enters and leaves your body. These tiny experiences, which once seemed insignificant, begin to fill your heart with peace. You start to realize that happiness was never distant. It was always present in the background of your life, simply overshadowed by the rush. Simplicity is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is making space for what truly matters. Our lives often become crowded, not because we have too little, but because we have too much, too many tasks, too many worries, too many expectations. These layers of more dim our ability to feel joy, but solitude helps peel away these layers. When you sit alone, you do not need anything special to feel content. You discover that peace arises naturally when the mind is quiet and satisfied with what is here, now. Solitude helps you learn how to do simple things with full presence. Drinking water becomes a moment of gratitude. A walk becomes an exploration. Watching the sky becomes meditation. Washing dishes becomes a grounding ritual. You stop rushing through activities just to reach the next task. You begin living instead of constantly preparing to live. This shift is profound. It transforms routine moments into opportunities for joy. Many people miss the beauty of life because they are too busy seeking something else. They eat while scrolling their phone. They walk while thinking about tomorrow. They speak while planning their next sentence. Their minds are always elsewhere. But solitude teaches you to return to the present. When you are truly present, even the smallest actions feel rich. A single breath, taken consciously, can calm the entire mind. A single flower can feel like a miracle. A quiet moment alone can feel like a blessing. Simplicity also reveals what you truly need. Most of the things you think you want are not necessities. They are distractions created by desire, comparison, or social pressure. When alone, you begin noticing what actually brings you peace. You realize that expensive things provide only temporary excitement. You notice that the thrill of newness fades quickly, but the comfort of simplicity remains steady. You begin craving less and appreciating more. This change does not mean abandoning worldly responsibilities or refusing to enjoy life. Instead, it means shifting your focus. You stop chasing stimulation and begin seeking nourishment. You prefer depth over distraction. You choose activities that bring peace rather than those that just fill time. You find joy in natural rhythms, morning light, evening quiet, seasonal change. Life begins to feel harmonious. As simplicity grows within you, your relationship with possessions changes. You no longer feel the need to accumulate endlessly. You realize that owning more does not create more happiness. In fact, it often creates more stress. Every object you own requires space, care, and attention. Letting go becomes easier. You begin keeping only what supports your peace, your purpose, or your joy. This creates physical space, which mirrors your mental space. Clearing clutter becomes a spiritual practice. Each item released is one less weight on your mind. Simplicity also affects relationships. You begin valuing sincerity over quantity. You prefer a few meaningful connections over many shallow ones. You learn to appreciate quiet time with loved ones instead of always chasing excitement. A simple conversation becomes fulfilling. Sharing a meal becomes memorable. Love becomes calm rather than dramatic. In simplicity, relationships deepen because there is space for presence, listening, and authenticity. When you learn to enjoy simple things, gratitude naturally grows. Your heart becomes sensitive to goodness. You wake up thankful not only for big blessings, but for small ones. A comfortable bed, clean water, warm food, a moment of stillness. Gratitude transforms your inner world. It shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. It opens your heart to abundance, not abundance of possessions, but abundance of peace. This gratitude creates contentment. Contentment does not mean you stop growing or dreaming. It means you stop believing that external things are the source of happiness. You pursue goals from inspiration, not desperation. You enjoy success, but you do not rely on it to feel whole. You find fulfillment in the journey, not just the destination. Contentment allows you to find peace regardless of circumstances. Simplicity also nourishes your mental health. When life is simple, the mind is less overwhelmed. You do not have to constantly make complex decisions. You do not drown in commitments. You do not carry the emotional weight of endless desires. Stress decreases naturally. There is more room for calmness. You begin noticing that your mind feels lighter when your life is simpler. You have more clarity, more focus, and more stability. Another gift of simplicity is time. Many people feel that they do not have enough time, but often their time is spent on unnecessary things, endless scrolling, constant socializing, overthinking, or chasing status. When you simplify your life, you reclaim your time. You suddenly have space for what matters: rest, creativity, reflection, learning, meaningful work, meaningful relationships. Time alone becomes rich rather than empty. Solitude teaches you that joy does not require performance. You do not need to be entertaining, productive, or extraordinary to feel alive. You can simply exist, breathe, observe, and feel joy. This realization is liberating. It frees you from the pressure to constantly achieve. It helps you step off the treadmill of accomplishment. You begin to understand that you are not alive to impress others. You are alive to live deeply. In Buddhism, simplicity is seen as a path to freedom. The more complicated life becomes, the more attachments form. Each attachment becomes a chain. Simplicity breaks these chains. It reminds you that everything you need is already here. Joy lives not in excess, but in presence. The Buddha taught that a simple mind is a peaceful mind. A peaceful mind is a free mind. Over time, as you embrace simplicity, the world begins to feel more beautiful. The small becomes magical. The ordinary becomes sacred. You feel at home in yourself. You no longer search for life in faraway places, you find it where you are. You no longer wait for special moments, you make ordinary moments special. Simplicity also teaches humility. You understand that you do not need to own much to be rich. You do not need to know everything to be wise. You do not need to be seen to be fulfilled. You become gentle toward yourself, toward others, toward life. Gentleness becomes a form of strength. Eventually, you realize that simplicity is not about having less. It is about needing less. It is about finding fullness in emptiness, richness in stillness, beauty in the ordinary. It is about seeing life clearly, without layers of illusion. Solitude shows you that the world does not need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. It only needs to be fully experienced. When you learn to enjoy simple things, you stop rushing toward the next moment. You stop chasing happiness. You begin living deeply in the moment before you. You begin seeing that this breath, this sky, this heartbeat is enough. Joy was never far away. It was always woven into the smallest details of life, waiting for you to notice. In the end, simplicity brings you home to peace, to presence, to gratitude, to your true self. It shows you that happiness is not found in having everything, but in appreciating everything. It teaches you that life's greatest riches are quiet, gentle, humble, and that when you slow down enough to see them, you become rich beyond measure. 14. Solitude helps you break free from social conditioning and discover your true identity. From the moment we enter the world, we are surrounded by voices telling us who we should be. Parents, teachers, communities, cultures, workplaces, and media all play a role in shaping our beliefs, values, and identities. They tell us what success looks like, what is considered beautiful, which behaviors are acceptable, what goals are valuable, and how we should live our lives. Much of this guidance is well-intentioned, but it often leads us away from ourselves. Without realizing it, we begin living lives designed by others, not by the quiet truth inside us. Solitude is the sacred space where we begin to question these external messages. It is where we slowly remove the layers of conditioning that have covered our authentic self. When you are constantly surrounded by others, you naturally absorb their thoughts, behaviors, and desires. You compare yourself to them. You judge your worth based on how you fit in. You adjust who you are to avoid disapproval. You try to belong, even if it means abandoning your true nature. Over time, this separation from self becomes so normal that you forget it happened. You assume you are living your life, when in reality, you are living a version scripted by society. Solitude interrupts this unconscious imitation. It gives you the distance you need to observe the invisible forces shaping your choices. In stillness, you begin to notice how much of your identity is borrowed. You may realize that the goals you are chasing were never yours to begin with. The career you chose might have been selected to satisfy family expectations. Your definition of beauty may have been crafted by media. Your fears may have been inherited from others. Your relationships may be based on pleasing rather than genuine connection. This recognition can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating, because you cannot reclaim your authentic self until you first see the layers that hide it. Solitude teaches you to listen to your own voice, not the voice of culture, not the voice of society, not the voice of peers, but the quiet voice within. At first, this inner voice may sound faint because it has been suppressed for so long. It may speak through intuition, gentle feelings, or subtle impulses. It does not command, it invites. But as you spend more time alone, that voice grows clearer. You begin distinguishing your true desires from those you were taught to want. You begin recognizing what nourishes your soul and what drains it. You slowly rediscover yourself. Social conditioning often teaches conformity. It encourages people to follow norms even at the cost of individual truth. It teaches that success is defined by wealth, status, and approval. But solitude helps you see that success is personal. It cannot be measured by external standards. Success may be living simply, cultivating inner peace, loving deeply, growing spiritually, pursuing creativity, or helping others. When you stop measuring your life through society's eyes, you begin living a life that feels meaningful to you. As you peel away conditioned beliefs, you may feel lost at first. You may wonder, if I am not who others told me to be, then who am I? This is a powerful question, and solitude gives you the freedom to explore the answer without pressure. You begin experimenting with your interests. You follow what feels natural. You rediscover passions that were buried. You find yourself drawn to certain activities, values, and environments not because others applaud them, but because they resonate with your inner being. This exploration is not a straight path. It is a journey of curiosity. Solitude also teaches you independence of thought. When you are alone, you reflect without interruption. You examine your beliefs. You ask yourself why you think the way you do. You discover that some beliefs were adopted unconsciously. When you question them, they dissolve. Others feel deeply true. You keep those. Slowly, you build an inner framework that belongs to you, not society. Your thoughts become clearer. Your choices become intentional. You stop seeking external instruction and begin trusting your own discernment. Breaking free from social conditioning is an act of courage. It means risking misunderstanding. It means walking away from paths others approve of. It means choosing authenticity over acceptance. But solitude gives you the strength to do this, because it shows you that you can stand on your own. You realize that belonging to yourself is more important than belonging to a group that requires you to betray your truth. You learn that true connection happens not when you change to fit in, but when you show up as your authentic self. As you release conditioned identity, your relationship with fear changes. Much of social conditioning is rooted in fear. fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. These fears keep people silent. They keep them from trying new things. They keep them trapped in roles that suffocate them. But when you spend time alone, you see that fear is simply a mental construct. It loses its power. You realize that judgment cannot harm your soul. Rejection cannot erase your worth. Failure cannot take away your inner dignity. This realization brings freedom. Solitude also brings integrity. You no longer say yes when you mean no. You no longer pretend to like what you dislike. You no longer accept roles that deny your truth. You begin honoring your inner compass. At first, this may create conflict with others who expect you to remain the same. But over time, your authenticity earns respect, if not from everyone, then from those who value truth. Most importantly, you earn respect from yourself. Living honestly becomes more important than being liked. With authenticity comes emotional clarity. When you express yourself truthfully, relationships become more genuine. You attract people who resonate with your essence and drift away from those who only appreciated your mask. This may feel like loss, but it is actually liberation. You stop performing. You stop shrinking. You give others permission to do the same. Authenticity creates deeper connection than conformity ever could. Solitude teaches you that your identity is not fixed. It is fluid. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to evolve. Who you were 5 years ago is not who you must be today. Social conditioning often pressures people to remain consistent, but consistency is not always truth. Growth requires flexibility. In solitude, you allow yourself to explore new versions of yourself without fear or shame. You embrace change as a natural part of life. Eventually, you begin feeling a sense of inner alignment. Your thoughts, beliefs, actions, and values start matching. You no longer feel divided within yourself. You move through life with integrity. You speak from your heart. You make decisions that nourish your spirit rather than impress others. This alignment brings peace because there is no resistance between who you are and how you live. Peace becomes your natural state. As you live more authentically, your purpose becomes clearer. Purpose is not something you find externally. It arises from living your truth. It emerges when you align your actions with your inner guidance. Your purpose may be big or small. It may impact many or just a few. But when it comes from within, it feels meaningful. You no longer need society to validate it. You know it is right because your heart feels at home. Breaking free from social conditioning empowers you to live a life that feels uniquely yours. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You start shining in your own way. You stop comparing your journey to others. You appreciate your own timing. You stop apologizing for being different. You celebrate your uniqueness. Your life becomes an expression of your inner truth, not a performance for the world. This freedom changes everything. You walk lighter. You breathe easier. You love deeper. You no longer feel like a stranger in your own life. You feel at home within yourself. Solitude gave you this home, this inner sanctuary where you can return any time to remember who you truly are. In the end, solitude becomes not just a physical experience, but a spiritual one. It is the space where illusion dissolves and truth emerges. It is where you strip away all that is false and uncover the essence beneath. That essence, your true identity, does not need validation. It does not need approval. It does not need comparison. It simply exists, complete, radiant, free. And the more time you spend in solitude, the more you realize you were never lost. You were simply hidden beneath layers. Now, you are returning to yourself. 15. Solitude teaches you how to love yourself the way you always wanted others to love you. Human beings are born longing for love. From our earliest days, we learn to seek affection, warmth, acceptance, safety, and belonging. We search for these feelings in the outside world, in family, friends, relationships, teachers, and communities. When people treat us kindly, we feel valued. When they walk away or disappoint us, we feel incomplete, unworthy, or broken. Over time, many of us begin believing that love is something that must be given to us by others. We forget that the most important source of love is not external, it is within. Solitude is the space where this truth slowly reveals itself. It is where you learn to love yourself in the way you once desperately hoped others would. When you first spend time alone, you might feel uncomfortable. You may notice a subtle emptiness, a longing for someone else to fill the silence. This is because most of your life, you have associated love with another person's presence. You may have believed that you needed someone else to make you feel worthy, wanted, or complete. But solitude gently exposes this illusion. It shows you that the emptiness you feel is not a sign that something is missing outside you. It is a signal that something inside you is asking to be healed. At first, being alone can feel like abandonment. The mind may interpret silence as loneliness. But as you continue to sit with yourself, you begin to realize that solitude is not the absence of love, it is the presence of your own awareness. You begin seeing that you are not truly alone, you are with yourself, and slowly something shifts. Instead of seeking love outward, you begin turning inward. You start learning the language of your own heart. Self-love is often misunderstood. Many think it means indulgence, pride, or narcissism. But true self-love is soft, humble, and kind. It means treating yourself with the same compassion you would offer someone you deeply care about. It means listening to your feelings, respecting your needs, forgiving your mistakes, and allowing yourself to grow. Solitude becomes the teacher of this gentle practice. In the quiet, you learn how to care for yourself without conditions. When you are alone, you observe how you talk to yourself. You become aware of the inner critic, the voice that says you're not good enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough. In solitude, you see how harshly you judge yourself. And this recognition becomes the foundation for transformation. You realize that you have been waiting for others to love you in ways you have not loved yourself. You have been waiting for someone to speak kindly to you, while you speak harshly to yourself. This awareness opens a door, the door to learning how to love yourself. Self-love begins with acceptance. Acceptance means acknowledging all parts of yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, your wounds, your dreams without shame. It means saying, I am allowed to be human. In solitude, you realize that imperfection is not failure, it is reality. You learn to embrace yourself not only when you are shining, but also when you are struggling. You allow yourself to rest when you are tired, to cry when you are hurting, to slow down when you are overwhelmed. You stop demanding perfection. You begin nurturing your inner world. As you learn to love yourself, you begin seeing your emotional needs clearly. You start noticing what makes you feel safe, what brings peace, what drains you, what excites you. You stop abandoning yourself to please others. You stop betraying your truth to gain approval. You begin honoring your needs with courage. You rest when your body needs rest. You say no when your heart feels resistant. You walk away when something harms your peace. You learn that loving yourself sometimes means choosing discomfort today to protect your future well-being. Loving yourself also means forgiving yourself. Every person carries regrets, things they wish they had done differently, choices that led to pain, moments where fear guided action instead of wisdom. These memories often remain as silent self-punishment. Solitude brings them forward, not to torment you but to help you release them. You begin to see that your younger self made decisions based on the understanding they had at the time. You realize that growth requires mistakes. You forgive yourself, not to erase the past, but to free your future. Self-love also teaches boundaries. When you value yourself, you no longer allow others to treat you carelessly. You stop offering your time and energy to people who only take. You protect your heart without closing it. Boundaries are not walls, but gates. They let in what is healthy and keep out what harms. Solitude gives you clarity to see which relationships nourish you and which only deplete your spirit. You learn to step away from those who cannot love you well, not with bitterness, but with peace. As self-love deepens, you start enjoying your own company. You find comfort in spending time alone reading, walking, thinking, meditating, cooking, resting. You no longer need constant distraction to feel all right. You become your own companion. You find energy in your own presence. You realize that solitude is not a punishment, it is a sanctuary. The fear of being alone fades because you carry love within you. This self-love also transforms how you show up in relationships. When you no longer depend on others to fill your emotional gaps, you stop clinging. You stop settling for less. You stop fearing abandonment. You begin entering relationships freely rather than desperately. You connect from fullness rather than need. You give love without sacrificing your self-respect. You receive love without doubting your worth. Relationships become expressions of love, not sources of identity. One of the most beautiful gifts of self-love is inner stability. When you love yourself, external events lose some of their power over you. Someone's rejection might hurt, but it no longer breaks you. Someone's absence might sadden you, but it no longer empties you. Praise becomes pleasant, but not necessary. Criticism becomes information, not a wound. You become grounded within yourself. You learn that love is not something others give you, it is something you carry. With self-love, life becomes softer. You stop fighting yourself. You stop running. You begin living with more ease. You enjoy simple pleasures, sunlight, silence, the taste of food, the rhythm of breath. You feel gratitude for your own existence. You begin understanding that you are enough simply because you are alive. In Buddhism, it is taught that loving kindness must begin with oneself. Only when we learn to care for ourselves can we truly care for others without attachment. Self-love is the foundation of compassion. It allows you to give without losing yourself. It allows you to support others without collapsing under their pain. It allows you to stand strong in your truth while remaining open-hearted. Over time, solitude reveals that the love you sought from others was always waiting inside you. Every moment you wished someone would comfort you, your soul was ready to do so. Every time you wished someone would choose you, your heart was quietly choosing you. Every time you hoped someone would see your worth, Your breath was silently reminding you that you were worthy from the beginning. Eventually, you realize something profound. Loving yourself is not a replacement for being loved by others. It is the foundation that allows you to receive love without fear and give love without losing yourself. This understanding transforms your entire life. You stop searching desperately. You stop negotiating your identity. You stop believing that love is scarce. You begin to see that love is abundant because it radiates from within. In the end, solitude teaches you that the deepest relationship you will ever have is with yourself. When that relationship is rooted in kindness, trust, respect, and compassion, life becomes peaceful. You no longer chase what is outside you. You carry home within you. You finally become the person you always needed. The one who stays, who listens, who forgives, who protects, who loves. In a world overflowing with noise, demands, and constant stimulation, solitude becomes a rare treasure. Yet those who are brave enough to sit with themselves, to quiet the external world long enough to hear their inner voice, discover a truth that most people miss their entire lives. Everything they seek outside already exists within. Happiness, peace, clarity, purpose, connection, and love are not gifts the world must deliver. They are qualities that awaken when we learn to return to ourselves. At first, the path of solitude feels challenging. The silence seems too loud. The mind becomes restless. Old memories return. Emotions rise. The heart feels exposed without its usual layers of distraction. Many turn away at this initial discomfort, believing that solitude is loneliness, that being alone is a sign of emptiness. But solitude is not emptiness, it is space. It is the gentle clearing of the mind so the truth can appear. If you stay with it long enough, something miraculous begins to happen. The silence no longer feels threatening, it becomes comforting. The mind begins to settle, the emotions become teachers rather than enemies, and slowly you begin to feel at home in your own company. Through this journey inward, you learn that your own presence is enough. You realize that you are not the incomplete half of a relationship, waiting to be completed by another. You are already whole. You see that your worth is not dependent on external validation, praise, or approval. It is intrinsic. It does not change with circumstances or opinions. You learn to appreciate yourself not because you are perfect, but because you are human. Solitude teaches you the art of self-awareness. It shines a light on your thoughts, patterns, and wounds, not to shame you, but to help you understand yourself more deeply. You learn why you respond the way you do, what fears still live within you, what dreams you abandoned along the way, what brings you peace, and what causes you pain. This understanding opens the door to healing. When old wounds surface, solitude gives you space to face them, feel them, and gently release them. You stop running from your past. You begin walking with it, transforming it into wisdom. The more you sit with yourself, the more you hear your inner calling, a quiet guidance that speaks without force. You realize that your life does not need to follow society's blueprint. You are free to define your own meaning of success, joy, and purpose. You are free to change, grow, evolve, and choose what feels aligned with your heart. This freedom does not make you selfish, it makes you truthful. And truth becomes the foundation upon which your life is built. As your inner world becomes organized and peaceful, the external world loses its power to disturb you. You no longer collapse when others reject you. You no longer chase relationships that harm you. You no longer fear being alone. You begin entering relationships from a place of fullness rather than need. You seek depth instead of distraction, sincerity instead of performance. Your self-love sets the standard for how others treat you. With time, your connections become healthier, deeper, and more real. You also learn to enjoy simplicity. You discover joy in small things: morning light, the taste of water, a peaceful walk, the rhythm of your breath. You stop rushing through life. You stop waiting for special moments to feel alive. You realize that every moment is special when you are present within it. The ordinary becomes enough. What once seemed boring becomes deeply beautiful. Life stops feeling like a race and begins feeling like an invitation. Eventually, solitude transforms from a practice into a way of being. You feel at peace in your own company, not because you isolated yourself from the world, but because you built a home within your heart. Whether surrounded by others or sitting alone, you carry that home with you. You move through life grounded, centered, and connected to your inner source. This journey does not end. Solitude is not a destination. It is a companion. It walks with you through different seasons of life, in joy and grief, in certainty and confusion, in love and loss. There will be times when you feel aligned and times when you feel lost again. That is part of being human. But once you learn how to return to yourself, you are never truly lost. You can step away from the world, breathe deeply, sit in silence, and find your way back. The true gift of solitude is not separation from others. It is reunion with yourself. It is remembering that you are enough. It is learning that peace begins within. It is discovering that you do not need to chase the world to find happiness. You only need to be present with yourself. When you become comfortable in your own presence, life becomes lighter. You no longer need people, things, or achievements to complete you. You choose them because they add beauty to your already whole existence. You give love freely because you are not giving from emptiness. You receive love gracefully because you believe you are worthy. And whether alone or with others, you remain rooted in yourself. In the end, solitude teaches the greatest lesson of all. You are your own home. You are your own peace. You are your own love. Everything else, relationships, achievements, experiences, are beautiful additions to life. But they are not life itself. Life begins inside, in the quiet space where you sit with yourself and whisper, "I am here. I am enough. I am whole." And once you know how to find that place within you, you carry it everywhere. No matter where you go, you are never alone.